Hello, my name is Dongsun Park and I'm a senior at Konkuk University Architecture Department. Did you know that there are actually a lot of skeptics over climate change out there? I thought that everybody is conforming with the global warming crisis, but it was not. How ironic is it? Despite the geometrical and environmental changes that we can see with our bare eyes, what will be the skeptics' main reason for not believing the climate change? Today I would like to talk about the global warming crisis. Climate change is a serious issue that can no longer hesitate to think about if it's real or not. It is real and it is impacting our Earth with changing our environment and eventually our daily lives too. First, I'll talk about the rise of the problem in the 1990s. Next, I'll specifically talk about some conferences that made some progress which alleviated the current problems. Finally, I'll raise some problems ongoing in recent days. As I introduced that there are a lot of skeptics about the global warming, people didn't closely acknowledge about the climate change before the disaster which occurred in Phuket. It was a tsunami which took over 8,500 casualties. From then, people began to more care about the environment because the tsunami's emergence was due to the ignorance of climate change. However, contrary to normal people, experts discussed about the issue from the late 20th century. The major conference which took place in Kyoto 1997 was a remarkable meeting with making some potential advancement about the climate change. However, this conference had some difficulties with meeting the requirements of each nation and couldn't last for a long period. So a replacement conference held in Paris to on-go with the problems and it was successful. So my main topic will be the efforts of Paris Climate Change Agreement that eased off the concerns about the global warming. At the very beginning, before the Kyoto Protocol, the severity of the climate change issue was initially discussed in Germany. Anyways, the Kyoto meeting's main purpose was to adopt a treaty which aim was to lessen the greenhouse gases. Meanwhile, greenhouse gases contain these gases and it causes the greenhouse effect which heats our Earth's temperature. It is essential for maintaining the temperature to a moderate condition, but when it's concentrated, the temperature rises and causes the climate change. The main content of the Kyoto Protocol was reducing the greenhouse gases by 5.2% until 2020 compared to 1990 to prevent the concentration of greenhouse effect. There were also innovative mechanisms they had adopted, which was establishment of flexible market about trading the emissions of promised limitation, joint implementation, and clean development. By trading the emissions, it was ultimately able to lessen the Earth's total gas emission. It would have continued with positive results if it lasted longer, but unfortunately some constraints had led the protocol off the track. First, conflict between the participating nations collided. Developed countries complained that the emission of greenhouse gases are originating from the developing countries, so that participating to the treaty was unfair. Secondly, most of the countries could not meet the emission target because two major countries, China and US, had not ratified the protocol. So based on the two critical constraints, several years after the dissolution came up with the new conference called Paris Climate Change Agreement in 2015. The main goal of this agreement is to strengthen the global response to the threat of climate change by keeping a global temperature rise below 2 degrees Celsius. The difference between the former one is that this time, to compensate the disadvantages that the developed countries had, developing countries involved the party. And this is one of the reasons why Paris Agreement is still activating. All nations' participation without any discrimination means a lot. Moreover, Paris Agreement succeeded by changing the paradigm of climate diplomacy by balancing the emissions and reporting and reviewing interactively within the different nations. However, the Trump government in the US is giving negative impacts on the agreement these days. Donald Trump has decided a withdrawal from the Paris Agreement. The benefits from the withdrawal that US can take can be simplified into two measures. The first one is that they can bring more benefits to own countrymen. There is a requirement in the Paris Agreement that developed countries have to make fund contributes which own citizens has to take part to the environment organization by paying extra tax. However, they do not have to keep it any longer. Another one is that they can seize the beneficial energy price to maneuver the manufactured factories than before. Every nation has neglected Trump's opinion and anticipates the future new administration of the US to bind back to the agreement, because of the reason why the most effective nation playing a big role considering the emission of greenhouse gases is the US. Withdrawal of them will cause a serious impact both on environment and politics around the world. President Trump is also skeptical about the climate change. Like I introduced in the first section, he is one of the skeptics of the global warming and doesn't think that greenhouse gases aren't the main reason for the environmental changes. Therefore, after his notification, other nations are bypassing the White House and dealing directly with the US states and major who have pledged to uphold the agreement concerning the field of global warming. To sum up, Paris climate change has brought successful achievements compared to any other conferences so far. It discussed only the positive matters that leads our planet to a healthier state. However, the problem we have to solve is the withdrawal of the US from the agreement. This can be a sensitive political issue, so normal students like us can't directly approach to this issue. However, what we can do is simple. Before doing any random task, how about sparing time to think about what negative impact can occur by making that move? We have to think twice for our home planet and especially for our next generation.